We are asking, are you retirement ready? Research shows one generation isn't, and they're running out of time to change course. Here's a clue. Well, if you guessed the MTV generation, also known as Generation X, you are correct. Gen Xers, who are between the ages of 43 and 58 right now, are the next group closing in on retirement. They are considered the first 401k generation, but many of them have almost nothing saved. And according to the National Institute on Retirement Security, 40% of Gen Xers have no retirement savings at all. The average household has just $40,000 saved. Joining me tonight to break this down and offer up some tips is Edward Scoby from Ironwood Family Wealth Advisors. Thanks for joining us tonight, Ed.
Pleasure to be here.
So why do you think it is that Gen Xers are apparently so far behind?
I've thought about this, and I think it goes back to the fact that, say, if we compare ourselves to our parents' generation, they had pensions, right? The idea was you'd work for a company for many years, you'd hit retirement age, the company would take care of you for the rest of your life. So you really didn't have to worry about it. But that began to change in the early 1980s. In the 1980s, people started using 401ks or other retirement plans like that. And the onus was shifted onto the individual and away from the company. And that all sounded great as a concept, but I think what begins happening is when you're a younger person, you've got things, you're getting started out in your life, you're getting started in your career, maybe you're buying a house, getting married and so forth. And those early years that are really critical, when time is on your side, you've got other things to spend money on. And a lot of people find themselves later on in life saying, oops, I got to catch up somehow.
Yeah, so many people, especially when they're young, just starting out, are told repeatedly to take advantage of that 401k if you can, and especially if you get an employer match. Talk about that time factor and the difference between investing a small amount when you're maybe in your 20s or 30s and investing a lot more later in life. Why is it such a mistake to wait?
Well, because think of it like a snowball rolling down a hill, right? The sooner it gets started, the bigger it gets over time. It's the same concept with compounding. If I'm getting a 6, 7, 8% rate of return every year over time, it really grows much faster than if I wait until I'm, say, in my late 30s or early 40s to start taking it seriously. Because even studies will show that if you get started much earlier in your life and then you stop saving, say at 30 or 35, you'll have more of a nest egg than you would have if you had waited later but started saving more aggressively then.
Yeah, so we mentioned a lot of households have about $40,000 saved, which is not nothing by any means, but won't really go far for a long period of time in retirement. And some say you need $1 million to retire comfortably. Do you agree with that?
Well, so here's some sort of back of the envelope math about that. $1 million is a lot of money. There's no doubt about it. But the sustainable withdrawal rate that is used in the financial planning industry is something around 4 or 5% per year. So if I look at $1 million, 4 or 5% of that per year is going to give me $40,000 or $50,000 a year. That sounds pretty good, right? But if I only have half of that amount of money, say $500,000, which is still a lot of money, now we're looking at maybe $20,000 or $25,000. So that could be kind of tough for a lot of folks. Now, if you've got Social Security benefits on top of that, that's certainly going to help, but it's not going to go as far as maybe some people think.
Yeah, a lot of people are relying on it or planning to rely on it. So would you say it's not even possible to subsist and survive only on Social Security?
Well, I think it's tough, and here's why. The average Social Security monthly benefit in the United States is somewhere between $1,700 and $1,800 per month. And on top of that, you're going to be taking Medicare out of that, Medicare Part B. And then at some point, if you have other assets and you've got other income flowing, it's possible that some of your Social Security benefits will get taxed. So when you put it all together, what actually comes into your bank account every month might be much lower than that $1,700 or $1,800 a month.
So let's say you're one of those folks who wasn't really thinking about this decades ago, and now they're starting to knock on that door of retirement. Is age 50 too late, and what would you advise someone to do if they're around that age?
Well, if there's time, there's hope. That's kind of how I look at it. It's kind of like going to the doctor because you don't feel well, and the doctor says, well, gosh, I'm glad you came in because there's things that we can do for you. So the first thing that I would advise doing is to have a really hard look at how you spend money, what resources you have available to you, and then say, gee, could I possibly be putting $50 more a month, $100 more a month, whatever it might be, into my retirement savings? That would be the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is I would ask myself, maybe I can't retire at 65 or 62 or whatever the number is I have in my head. Maybe I need to game plan this a little bit. One thing you could do if you've got a 401k plan or other retirement plan is log in and see if there are some online calculators or other tools available to you so that you can kind of play around with the numbers and see, maybe I have to retire a little bit later. And then the last thing that I would say is that everyone once a year or so should go to the Social Security's website, ssa.gov, and get an estimate of what your Social Security benefit could be. You can also go into one of their offices. But the point is, when you start looking at all your resources together and then you play what if with different calculators, it'll give you a much clearer sense of where you stand and what sort of corrective action, if any, you'd need to be taking.
All right, great advice. Edward Scoby from Ironwood Family Wealth Advisors. Thanks so much for your insight and for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.